change out any brake shoes. Once they get done, then the remote controlled locomotives will hook on the west end of it, and they'll push it up and over the hump. That's what those units up on the hump are. They're the switch engines that push the train up and over the hump. Now once it goes over the hump, it's going to go into one of 64 bowl tracks. There's 8 switches, and each switch has 8 tracks. And at the top of that, once they're cut loose with the pinner, he'll pull the pin lifter, he'll pull the pin, and that'll free, just goes right on down the hump. Well, they weigh that car, so they know how much it weighs, and they kind of got a calculated figure how long it's going to take till it bangs into the car that's on the other end of that bowl. They got what they call retarders, and those retarders slow the car down so that when it makes contact, it makes contact roughly between 1 mile an hour and 1.6 mile an hour. Anything over that, and you'll get what they call bowl damage. And if we get any bowl damage, that's on our dime. We got to take it to one of our service facilities, and we got to repair that car. We don't like to damage our customers' cars. Over on your left, we're going to come back by this, but this is our East Run-Through facility. And what you see in front of us is a loaded coal train leaving that East Run-Through facility on one of our 3 main lines that come through North Platte. And like we always say, you want to expect train movement in every direction at any time. This road right here, they call this Mangini Drive or Mangini Avenue, and I was told that that was named after a clerk, Lou Mangini, that retired a few years ago. Before, these roads never had any names, and a few years ago they decided they better name them so that if our fire trucks or our ambulances come out here, they kind of know where they're going. But over on our right, that's where the bowl tracks are. And if you don't understand what they're doing, if we're building a train, say it's going to Memphis, we'll the foreman in this yard, they call him, he's a yard master. He'll tell that switch engine crew on the other end of the bowl, where they got the trim tracks. He'll say, well, we're going to build the Memphis today, and we build a train every day that goes to the same place. We build Memphis, we build a Little Rock, we build one that goes to Louisiana, and we build one that goes to Fort Worth, and we build trains that go to Chicago. Well, he'll say, tell this switch engine crew, he'll say, I need to build tracks 1 through 5, 8, 9, and 10. That's going to be our Memphis. So he'll come in with his remote control switch engine, and he'll bang into track 1, and he'll pull that out. He'll bang into track 2, pull it out, all through 1 through 5. Then he'll go over and he'll get 8, 9, and 10. And then he'll pull those cars down through the trim tracks to the east departures. We have 6 tracks down there. While they're doing that, the diesel shop's getting the power ready. And when that power's ready, it'll come down to the departure yards, and that trim will bring that train down to the departures. We'll lock it up as Carmen, and we'll manually buckle all the air hoses, and we'll put air through the train. We'll give it an air test, and then we'll put a Fred on it, or they'll put a DP on the rear of the train, and then it'll be ready for a conductor and an engineer to go down the road, and then we'll just build the next one. And we do that about 15 times a day in those yards, usually 5 or 6 a shift. No, it will eventually, but not always. Well, there will always be some cars in the bowl you left over, but typically they're going to go somewhere. If they're loaded, definitely, or they might hang around until a customer asks for a car, and then it'll be put on a train and taken to its destination. I didn't really get to tell you, but we went by some cars, and we're going to go by another one. It's called a Union Pacific Fruit Express car. The symbol on it is ARMN. If you see on these cars right here, that's a CEFX car, and then the numbers behind it are that's the symbol of the car number. Well, these Union Pacific Fruit Express, we were trying to explain what they were. They are for all of our frozen goods, anything that you'd see in the refrigerator or the freezer, we can ship. We're on our 3rd generation of that car. The first generation of those cars were packed in ice. So they'd come into town and we'd have an ice house, and they'd put blocked ice in the rail car, and then it'd go on down the road. And then they had a second generation of that car, and for any of these railroad buffs, they were painted yellow, and they said UPFE on the side, and they had Detroit diesel engines in them. And for any of you guys that are truckers, you know a Detroit engine is noisy, it smokes, and it leaks a lot of oil. And that's exactly what those reefer units did. They made a lot of noise, and they smoked, and they dripped oil everywhere. Well, now we have our third generation car, and it has a reefer unit that's just like what you'd see on a semi-trailer going down the interstate. And those cars are bigger, and they're longer, they're taller, and they hold a lot more. And the reefer unit is a lot more economical, and they're easier to change out. They're on the side of or on the one end of the car. We have about 4,500 of those cars in our fleet. About 4,500 cars that are reefer units. For anybody, I guess that's a common terminology if you know what you're talking about. A reefer unit is a refrigeration unit. In our world, when we're where we're not supposed to be, and our foreman asked where we're at, and he said, "Well, I'm frog." And right now we're frogs. We're waiting on a train. So that's a terminology if you've ever wondered what it meant to be frog. Right now we're frog. I don't know. The last unit of the day here, last train, and you guys, I can ramble on all day. If you notice these rail cars, you see how one end of them's painted and the other end isn't? Well, that one end of that has a rotary coupler. And when these loaded coal cars go to the mine, they dump them. And if you'll notice, there's paint on one end and it's attached to a car that isn't painted on the other end. Because between one or the other of those cars, you got to have a rotary coupler, or they can't dump them. So if you ever notice that, and somebody had to tell me that, I didn't actually know that. But those cars are made out of aluminum, and they're all put together with big rivets called hucks. They're huck bolts. Those cars weigh roughly about 42,000 pounds. If you notice on the side of it, you'll see it says lightweight. It'll be about 42,000, and they can hold about a gross weight of about 244,000. So they can hold right out 100 ton of coal. And a train averages about anywhere from 115 to 135, 140 cars. Some coal yards can't hold more than about 115. Your newer coal yards or your power plants, they can take upwards of about 140 cars. And for any of you that don't know what coal is, and coal being 70% of our business, coal comes out of the ground as a rock, and it goes to the power plant, and it's crushed up into coal dust, and it's put into a boiler in the furnace. And that furnace basically just makes fire, and it heats up water in a boiler, and it makes it into steam, and it goes up into those steam pipes, and it turns a turbine, which is a turbine, a big old propeller, and that turbine turns a generator that makes electricity. And you have those, like we have one over here at Sutherland. Some of these cars, they'll go to, there's Jefferson Energy Plant there in outside of Manhattan, Kansas. You've got some of the OMAX cars, those are owned by Warren Buffett. They go to a power plant in Omaha. The road we're turning onto, I was told by Bob Coleman that this was the old Front Street. Now, I was corrected by my father-in-law to say that the road we were just on was Front Street. So somewhere between this road and that road,